Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
As I sat in the dark and contemplated, I realized there is no grand, large apocalypse, just an endless procession of little ones.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we are going back to talking about the game I've been working on for forever, Postapocalyptia.
The Forever game.
The Forever game, yeah.
It's like Forever Home, but a little different.
Yeah, Forever Home's actually finished.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So last time we talked about this, we were talking about the attributes, the primary attributes and the secondary attributes and how you would calculate all of those.
And what about tertiary attributes?
Don't even start with me. So when I was listening back to it while I was editing, I realized just how info-dumpy it sounded. So I'm going to try and, turn down the tism a little bit. And
yeah, I was going to say, some days the tism shines through for both of us. We're like, ooh, the things.
Yeah. Hyperfocus say what?
Yeah. If you want a grand example, please go back and listen to some of our first episodes, especially when we were doing our lore dives into the planes, and oh my goodness.
Yeah, you can skip over the first couple, I think Mechanus and Limbo, because those were still relatively confined. Go into some of the ones where the single episode was 3 hours, and then we started splitting them into two.
Yeah,
because we would go like 4.5 hours worth of content per
Damn,
plane.
it was fun.
It was, but
yeah, tism info dump.
Yeah,
prime examples.
Prime example. But anyway, we started talking about character creation last time, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the other aspects where you get a lot more personalization to your character creation this time. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the skill system, perks and traits and quirks, and how all of that affects your character creation.
This is the flavor casting of the character.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll stamp out the same cookie cutter cookie for everything, but now you get to decorate it.
Well, I mean, and it's not even necessarily same cookie cutter thing. It's just there's only so many choices to make when you're talking about your attributes. Basically, the only thing that you get to choose is, depending on the way that you're building your character, which score goes into which attribute, and then everything else is just math.
Yeah.
And granted, depending on what kind of character you're wanting to play, you're going to allocate those points differently, especially since this is a system that doesn't have character classes. It's purely based on what skills you want to take. So there is no prescription to what you can take aside from making sure you have enough attribute points to qualify to buy the skill.
Right. That makes perfect sense.
So, getting right into everything, the first thing that you do after you calculate all of your attributes is you choose your skills. You choose what skills you're wanting to take. There is a list. I can't remember the count on how many there are. It has changed over time. I think 17 skills.
I was counting 18. Let me double count.
That's because there's one that got deleted.
Okay. It's still a work in progress.
Yeah. I was toying with having crafting as a skill.
Okay.
But everything that I was doing with crafting was mechanically different from all of the other skills. And so I'm going to break that out as its own separate thing if I can figure out how to make it work.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it is a post-apocalypse, supposed to be sort of a survival game vibes, where resource management is important. And so having a way to craft things is on theme for the game, but I wanted to figure out a way to do crafting that was both fun and easy to manage.
Gotcha.
And that is a very hard middle ground to find.
That is a hard middle ground. I think if I had that skill, I'd wind up calling it something like engineering. So it's more than just mechanics. It's more than just crafting. It could cover all things. It could cover, because again, you have like industrial engineering, electrical engineering.
Well, see, there are skills that are intended to be used to make things. There is a chemistry skill and there is a repair skill.
Right. I would say chemistry and engineering would be very different. Repair and engineering would be close, but I think when you're repairing, you're kind of like seeing what's wrong with something and why it's not working versus creating something brand new from whatever raw materials you have. It's almost like the artificer within D&D, and you're not patching something that already exists, but you have the ability to create something new entirely. And I think those are different things.
Right. And so the way that I had it initially is crafting was the way that you made anything that was not a gear item with stats.
Okay.
So, like, you can't make weapons and armor with the crafting skill, but you can make clothes and shoes. You can make those things that you need, but which do not necessarily have stats.
Okay. That would make sense. And I mean, again, depending on how finicky and how micromanagey you wanted to get with your role play, you absolutely are going to need crafters in the apocalypse. Again, those that can work textile arts in the apocalypse, they're going to be golden. They're going to be as important as just about anything else.
Yeah.
And so we do not want to overlook those. While, again, engineering, doing things mechanically, building, adding on things, improving existing structures or devices, again, also a very needed skill. Again, rabbit trails and tism.
Right, yeah. And it was trying to figure out how to allow characters to specialize in different crafting categories and subcategories without just having a huge, almost like a tech tree.
Yeah.
And, taking up 2/3 of the book with just this tech tree of, okay, you need to take this crafting specialization so that you can get this sub-specialization, so you can get this sub-sub-specialization, so you can make this thing. And
but that's almost true to life, and I almost like it, but yeah, no, I get where it would be.
It was ballooning far beyond reasonable size.
If this was a computer game, it would be perfect.
Oh, yes.
But as for a pen and paper, absolutely not. And again, true to the original inspiration, the original Fallout RPG was very computer RPG themed or leaning. And so, yes, it was overly complex. And so I see where trying to avoid those same pitfalls, we would definitely want to take 5 steps back from that.
Right, yeah. So
just back away slowly.
So that is why crafting has been, I'm going to go ahead and highlight and delete it from the Google Doc while we're talking about it, because it doesn't need to be there. It is something that is going to have its own separate system eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I can work on.
That'll be the first expansion book.
That's something that I can work on once I have started playtesting and I'm sure that the actual core mechanics of the game work.
Yes.
Because the other aspect for crafting that I was running into issues with was gathering materials. Right. And so how do you go about gathering materials? Do you have it where you have a concise list where you have specific materials for specific recipes? Do you have it to where it is more abstract and then you leave it up to the lore keeper, the person running the game, to figure out what they need for their recipes? Where is the middle ground where you provide enough framework but you don't provide so much that it becomes overwhelming?
I think you leave that to the lore keeper personally. The lore keeper and the players, and again, that becomes a 0-session question, is how fiddly or how minute do you want the rules to run? Again, going back to tabletop games, I've played many a campaign and one-shots where things like spell components are just kind of hand-waved and ignored largely. If you want to play a hardcore rules as written, if you want to cast certain spells, you have to have, that bag full of components and goodies to actually use the spells or to create the spells. Most people just hand wave them unless it's something huge like a resurrection spell where you need 1,000 gold of diamonds or something like that. So I think within the lore keeper, you could put like a sidebar, that could either be something hand wavy or the lore keeper can go in depth. Whether your party is out there specifically trying to find resources to build things, that could be part of a campaign arc for your players. Or if it's just, hey, they're in a village and they want to build something, maybe they can go to the general shop and the people within whatever settlement they find have set NPCs that do that regularly, and they have a supply of general goods that they would be willing to trade or barter for.
Right, yeah. And the thought is having a system in place to where if they wanted to make it themselves, they could, and where they could control the quality of the thing so that way they could potentially use these goods that they are making as materials for barter or sale.
Yes, absolutely. And again, at that point, you're kind of dipping your toes into that artificer class from D&D again. Or even something like a mage or a sorcerer writing spell books or scrolls or things along those lines. Or going back to older editions, armorers, you used to be able to make your own armor within
Right.
D&D. You can't really so much now. The rules are kind of there, but again, talking about things that people ignore. So I think having the option to do it and just have a sidebar saying this is an option, it's a thought, but it's up to the players and the lore master how they want to do it.
Yeah. So anyway, getting a little bit back on topic. So with all of the skills, each skill has 4 ranks. You have to buy each rank individually. Each rank costs the number of experience points equal to the value of that rank. So it costs 1 experience to buy the first rank, 2 to buy the second, 3 to buy the third, 4 to buy the fourth. And then you have to have a minimum of 4 points in that skill's governing attribute in order to buy the first rank of it. So you have to have a certain amount of capacity and aptitude before you can buy into skills. So you can't like buy into the acrobatic skill with a quick of 1. You can't
Aw.
be you can't be the world's most clumsy acrobat. I'm sorry.
Okay, scratch that character off the list. Fine. But I am the world's most clumsy acrobat. What are you talking about?
And then the minimum score for that rank of skill also increases by 1 for each. So rank 2 requires a 5, rank 3 requires a 6, rank 4 requires a 7.
Okay.
All of those are the +1 bonus range attribute levels. So like the higher end, like the 8, 9, 10, where you get a +2, those are just extra. So if anyone who has at least a +1 has the potential to get any skill that they want to. And whenever you're creating your character, you get to just automatically pick 3
Okay.
just off the top for free. That's what you get.
So within character creation, this is finicky. What if my character initially had maybe like an athletic skill of 2? I'm not the world's best acrobat, but I was fairly agile. But something has happened before gameplay, and maybe I have like a mangled leg or maybe a shoulder that where the torn rotator cuff or something like that consistently lowers my quick or my strength at that point. Would I still have that initial skill, but my skill's under it now, or would that not be something that would work for character creation?
Generally speaking, what you are asking about would fall under the lingering wounds mechanic. Lingering wounds is something that happens if you take a certain amount of damage and you fail a certain check. We can talk about that later, but there is a sequence of things where, so in combat, if you take damage, you lose stamina. Once your stamina hits 0, you start taking damage to your tough score, which is you taking physical bodily harm.
Correct.
And anytime your tough is damaged, you have to make an endurance check. And the endurance check it's a D10 plus your remaining tough, and you have to get a total of those 2 of 10 or higher, or you take status debuffs, basically.
Okay.
If you roll a 1 on that endurance check, and this is a house rule, so you don't have to do it, but if you roll a 1 on that endurance check, then you get a lingering wound. So that's something like a broken arm or a concussion or something along those lines, something that is going to stick around for a while.
Gotcha.
And there are going to be I haven't populated the list yet for what lingering wounds I'm going to have, but there are going to be some that are going to be quite catastrophic. And the mechanics for the system is until you reach the end of this story arc and you take an extended rest, you are going to be suffering from the effects of this lingering wound. You can heal any of them.
Okay.
Healing them might be your body recovering. Healing them might be getting the proper mechanical aids to help you now that your body doesn't work the way it's supposed to anymore.
Understandable. I like it.
Yeah, there are ways to do that. And so what I'm saying is there is a way to go about doing what you're saying, but
Okay.
not at character creation
Okay, perfect.
necessarily. Now, if you're playing this game and you talk to the lore keeper and you're saying, hey, I want to do this, then what you can say is you would take whatever lingering wound you're trying to get. So, like in your case, I have a torn rotator cuff, so your arm doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And then you would figure out what the penalty for that lingering wound would be. And then you would determine what your attribute score should be without that penalty. You're going
Okay.
to treat it as if the score on your sheet is your attribute with the penalty applied.
Okay.
And then in that case, if your attribute score would be high enough without that penalty, then you could probably still take the skill. Because you're not going to lose ranks in skills just because you take a lingering wound, right? Like someone who does gymnastics is still going to be able to do some gymnastics if they get a traumatic injury and recover from it. They may not be as good as they were before that injury, but they're still going to have the knowledge and the muscle memory of doing that skill.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I would do it. That is not written into the game yet. That is something that I might bring up later as like lore keeper guidance.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would go into the DMG and not the player's handbook.
Well, I'm trying to avoid doing a 3-book thing.
Yes, no, I totally understand.
And so that would be a sidebar.
Yes, absolutely.
That would be a sidebar in the character creation section of the book.
Did not mean to derail you. I apologize.
No, it's a good question to ask. It's something that I hadn't thought about and something that I would give guidance for. But generally speaking, at character creation, you're not going to be making characters with lingering wounds already.
Yeah.
You could. There's nothing that says that if you have an agreement with the other people at the table that you can't. But as a general baseline, you're not going to be doing that.
Right. Depending on where this is still formation too. If this was something players really wanted to explore, like if there was a large push for this, I know a lot of games, and again, going into more video games where it's easier to calculate such things. But when you're doing like your character creation, you could take, well, I'm going to have this lingering wound. I'm going to have this negative. I'm going to have this bond or whatever. That's a negative for my character that can give me an extra point to put as a positive elsewhere to kind of balance it out, to kind of balance whatever limitation you're starting. So your characters all start close-ish to even footing. And again, that's a zero session, something to talk to your lore master about. But that is definitely, I think, an option that could be feasible as well.
Right, yeah. All right, so for the different skills that we've got some skills that are combat skills and some skills that are non-combat skills. All of the non-combat skills have one attribute to govern them. So like I said, acrobatics uses quick. That's the first one on the list, so that's the one I'm going to use as the example. Athletics uses brawn, so that's your strength. And then you have your combat skills, which they require 2 attributes. But you don't have to have a 4 in both attributes. For your first rank, the 2 attributes added together has to equal 7. So you can have a 4 and a 3 as a bare minimum, or a 2 and a 5 as a bare minimum. For example, Brawl. Brawl is hand-to-hand combat without using a weapon.
Okay.
The 2 governing attributes for Brawl are Brawn and Tough. So it's your physical strength and your physical endurance.
That feels very VTM to me, which I like. And again, a great game system as well. But having those 2 attributes, so it's just not just one.
Right.
That does, like I said, that makes me think of White Wolf games and particularly VTM. And I think that is a good flavor choice for that.
Yeah. So like you could be a glass jaw and have a really high brawn and a low tough, which means that you can hit hard, but you can't take a hit. Or vice versa, you could just be a tank. You could be that person who can just take a beating, and you might get the occasional hit in, but your job is to keep the other guy occupied while your friends take care of him.
Right. I want to say Butterbean, but Butterbean can throw some hands too.
Another example of a combat skill that uses 2 stats would be melee weapons. So melee weapons uses brawn and deft. So deft is your hand-eye coordination. That means that melee weapons can cover the big, heavy sledgehammer, but it can also cover, going in with a knife, like a really quick attacks. And so you're not going to necessarily have to go with a brawn heavy build if you want to use melee weapons. If you want to use light weapons use the deft attribute instead of brawn. So you would be able to use light weapons and still be an effective character with a low brawn score.
Okay.
So those are the sorts of things that I'm getting into. So the non-combat skills, we got acrobatics, athletics. So acrobatics is your quick, your balance, your dodging. Athletics is your anything strength. So lifting, pushing, pulling, dragging. You've got chemistry, which is making things with chemistry. So alcohol, explosives, drugs, both recreational and medicinal.
They're the same.
Sometimes they are. Computer use, so that's, anything having to do with utilizing a computer, anything digital, anything where you're interacting with software. So that would be like, hacking into secured computer networks, bypassing electronic security features, things like that. And then finagle, I just really like that word.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
That's anything. It's practical application of deft. It's practical application of the hand-eye coordination. So it's picking locks, arming and disarming traps, manipulating machinery, tying knots, twisting wires, things like that. Anything where a steady hand will help.
Okay.
You've got medicine, so that's, it's medicine.
You can make the chems, but do you know how to use them properly?
Yeah.
That's why there's a difference between a pharmacist and a doctor.
Exactly. But the big thing for the medicine skill is making first aid checks.
Yes.
To stop people from bleeding out.
Good to know.
Being able to heal people in combat, stuff like that. You've got Old World. So Old World is knowledge of anything from before the apocalypse.
Okay.
So that's determining cultural significance of items. That's interpreting schematics that you find, because there may be you might find something for chemistry. You might find a formula written out if you go into a lab somewhere and you don't necessarily know what each compound is. Having Old World might be able to help you identify the compounds, and if the name of that compound has changed, or even if the people in this post-apocalypse still know what the name of that compound is.
That does bring up a question I don't think we've addressed in our previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
While Postapocalyptia obviously is post-apocalypse, the apocalypse has happened and time has passed. Exactly how much time has passed since the apocalypse?
That is something that you determine in session 0 when you're creating the world.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have something that is happening immediately post-event.
Okay.
Or you can have something that's happening 200 years later, or anywhere in between.
I think this Old World skill would or could depend very heavily on time elapse. Like if it's been 10 years since the apocalypse, I think the Old World would be much easier to recall or remember than if it was, say, 200, 250, 300 years past. I think that makes a relatively large difference.
I will agree with you on that, but referencing back to a book that you recommended, The Earth Abides.
Yes.
Their knowledge of the Old World
changes within a generation, yes.
Yeah, it went away very quickly.
It did, yes.
And so that's sort of reinforcing where I'm going with that, because that's sort of what I wanted and it's things like being able to identify road signs.
Okay.
Things like that. It's, being able to read the environment to help you navigate. Understanding where in a building's layout would the security office normally be. Things like that. Those are the sorts of things that Old World is supposed to cover.
Okay.
And a lot of these skills are going to be open to interpretation. I want them to be open to interpretation because I want the players to find new and interesting ways to use them.
No, I like that. And again, I do enjoy that flexibility because, yes, absolutely. Things like that should not necessarily be set in stone, but it is a consideration for each individual game. I agree 1000%.
All right, next is operate. So operate is how to run anything mechanical. So that would be running the machines in a factory or driving a car or flying a helicopter or piloting a boat.
Okay, so just any kind of heavy machinery.
Yeah,
Okay,
any sort of mechanical thing.
alrighty. I like it.
So then we got repair. So repair is fixing things. There's going to be a lot of interaction between repair and operate if you are in that sort of a campaign where you are going through and fixing up the wasteland so that you can, restore some semblance of society. But repair is for fixing weapons and armor. It's for salvaging materials when scrapping. It's for building and installing mods to modify your weapons and armor. Repair and chemistry are the two primary crafting skills that have been left in the skill list right now.
Give me a second.
You're good.
I am finally doing a thing that we said we were going to do forever, and I am doing it as we speak. And I'm making our media suggestions channel.
Okay.
Okay, it is up. It's active. I have here. I will put stuff into it after the rest of this podcast.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Rabbit trails
we're good.
everywhere.
We're good. So this is something that hasn't come up yet because we haven't gotten to talking about weapons and armor yet, but I am currently using a condition system because things wear out.
Yes.
And in a world where you can't just throw it away and buy a new one, being able to maintain your gear is kind of important.
Yes.
It's one of the things that I wish was still in Fallout 4.
Yeah.
I wish that they had left that in. I mean,
They took it out?
I understand. Yes, they took condition out.
I really wish they would have made a Fallout 4. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. Just like I wish they would have made a Matrix 2 and 3, I really wish they would have made a Fallout 4. No, and again, that's actually something that's missing from 5th edition as well. It was somewhat in 3rd and 3.5, and a lot of other tabletop games have overlooked equipment condition and breakage for ease of play, and I get it. You can only micromanage so much. But especially in a post-apocalypse, you're going to be repairing things, you're going to be putting things back together and hoping they work. Things will always break down at the worst possible moment. We all know this. And when you put something back together, almost never is it quite as good or as functional as when it was originally created.
Right. So the general rundown of how condition is going to work is you have 10 tick boxes for your item. If it is at full condition, if it is, fully functional, operating exactly how it's supposed to, you're going to have no tick marks in your box.
Okay.
And as you use it, you will occasionally have to make condition checks. So like for your armor, whenever you get hit, you have to make a condition check. And basically what you do is you're rolling a d10 and you're trying to roll above the number of tick marks that you have on your item.
Okay, so if your item's down to 8 tick marks and you roll your d10, you'd have to roll a 9 or 10 for it to...
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And when you hit 5 tick marks, so when you hit halfway, your armor provides half as much protection and your weapons deal half damage.
Okay.
And as you start accruing tick marks, it's going to start degrading faster and faster. It becomes harder and harder to make that roll.
So what prompts a condition check on your equipment?
So for armor, it is whenever you get hit.
Anytime you get hit?
Anytime you get hit.
Okay.
If you get hit with a critical hit, you automatically take 1 tick mark.
Ooh, I like it. Okay, perfect. I'm on board.
There are ways that you can get tick marks of damage without rolling.
Okay.
And you have to have that initially, because if it's a full condition item, it has 0 tick marks. No matter what you roll, you're going to roll above that.
Okay, yeah.
And then once you get to 10 tick marks, it's broken and you have to fix it before you can use it again.
Okay, perfect.
Or you can just scrap it and use the parts to repair something else. But with weapons, I still haven't dialed in exactly how weapon conditions are going to work. I know that whenever you have a critical failure with your weapon, you automatically take one tick mark and then you have to roll for a potential second one.
Okay.
But with just regular use, I'm not entirely certain how to manage that because, with a melee weapon, if you have a hammer and you're hitting things with it, the act of using it to hit things is going to potentially damage it.
Yes, except a hammer is designed for that, and so I have seen craftsman's hammers that are 50, 60 years old.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that you can't have that, but when you're talking about that hammer has been taken care of. That hammer has not been used to do some of the things that you would have to use it for in a survival situation.
I would say with a weapon, anytime you fail a check with the weapon, not necessarily miss, but if you try to use the weapon for something, so again with the rifle, you're not really in a pinch. Yeah, maybe you want to use that rifle as a club, kind of like they did the Kentucky
Right.
long rifles. I love the idea. Anytime you critically fail or critically miss, that's a tick. And I would say anytime you try to use that weapon in a situation it's not designed for, you need to roll a check.
Right.
Or if there is some sort of, maybe like if you fall, or like if there's an ability like an athletics check that you fail and you're carrying the weapon on you, maybe all of your gear takes a check roll. So like, yeah, you're walking with your bow and you trip over a log, you're okay, but you fell on the bow and it snapped.
Right. I think I'm trying to remember because I don't think I have it transferred over to the Google Doc yet. I think the way that I had it initially set up is that for melee weapon attacks, you have to roll a condition check anytime you hit something and don't overcome its damage threshold.
Okay.
So if you hit it and it doesn't deal full damage, so if whatever damage threshold they have soaks some of that damage and it halves the damage, then you
Okay.
would have to roll a condition check. If you're hitting them in such a way that you're dealing full damage, I don't think that your weapon is going to be in danger of breaking.
Fair.
Because you've obviously hit them in such a way that their armor didn't protect them.
I like that. I do like that.
And then I think what it was with ranged weapons is you had to do a condition check each time you reloaded them.
Okay.
Part of that is to prevent people from doing the video game thing of firing 3 rounds of their 30-round clip and then automatically reloading, because all you have to do is push a button.
Right.
But there are balance issues with that potentially, because you're going to have some weapons that are single shot. Like if you have a bow and arrow, for example, do you have to make a condition roll every time you fire an arrow?
Right.
As
No.
opposed to a revolver, which has 6 rounds in it, and you have to roll a check after you fire 6 rounds, versus a rifle with a 30-round magazine. You get to fire 30 rounds before you have to make a condition roll. So that's where I'm trying to figure that out. Now,
I
granted,
may have a solution for you. I think with your ranged weapons, at the end of each day, you need to make a maintenance check. Because again, these, especially things like a bow, the string is going to be taut, or you might get a crack in the actual bow itself. With the guns, the chemicals from the bullets firing are going to potentially wear on the barrel if it's not cleaned properly, that kind of thing.
right, you're going to foul it.
Yeah, and so you make your maintenance check at the end of each day for your ranged weapons. And if you fail your maintenance check, you can gain 1 on a critical fail, maybe 2 checks on your damage counter.
Yeah, but that puts the mechanical system differently for melee weapons and ranged weapons, like vastly differently.
It would be, though,
because the melee weapons would be, you have to roll condition whenever you use them, and then range would be, once per day you have to, because a melee weapon, if you have a substantial combat, you might have to roll 5 or 6 condition rolls.
Gotcha. Ooh, okay.
So,
no, I see the challenge.
yeah, so that's where I'm running into the issue here, is that I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a way that is fair, that people aren't going to just all run around with handguns because they can fire 12 rounds before they have to swap everything out, and they get to only have to make 1 check a day.
So then it would be like a melee. It would be a. I would do for
It might be, the answer might just be,
per round of combat.
regardless of what the weapon is, if you don't overcome the target's damage threshold, you roll a condition check.
Yeah.
Because it might have been that there was something wrong with your ranged weapon that prevented that projectile from doing exactly what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, maybe you're firing, at a low FPS because your barrel's not holding proper pressure, or your string's not got proper tension,
or you're using old ammunition, so your gun is fouling faster than it should,
and it's getting gunked up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I like that.
So I think that might be the fix.
Okay, good deal.
And that makes it uniform across all weapons. So
solutions have happened. I like it.
Solutions have happened. I like it. All right. So if we have 3 more non-combat skills. One is speech. You have to have a speech skill. Yeah. You have to have a way to gain bonuses to demonstrate that somebody is
silver tongue,
potentially more capable than the person playing them. Let's be honest. There are people who play high charisma characters who do not have high charisma.
That would be me.
When I went to Gen Con, was it last year? No, 2 years ago now. Was it last year? I can't remember.
I don't recall.
I think it was last year.
Yeah, I think so too. Because you came back with the fun games.
Yes. So when I went to Gen Con last year, one of the games that I played in with my Cypher game, I inadvertently became the face because the 2 characters that were left on the table after everyone showed up, one of them was intended to be the face and the other one was intended to be the driver.
Okay.
And it just so happened that the character that I picked up had a couple of skills that could be used in a social situation. But I am not a face player. So it was a kind of an awkward situation. I think we pulled it off all right. But nobody wanted to be the face, and so I ended up being the face by default.
Not in the face.
Not in the face. That's my moneymaker. That's why I have no money.
When doing our podcast with our high charisma skills. Look at that.
That's because we have faces for radio.
That's right.
Anyway, the other 2 are stealth, which, again... Sneaky. But stealth is not just being sneaky. It is also being able to detect other people who are trying to be sneaky.
Okay, I like it.
Because if you have the skill set to know how to sneak through places, you have the skill set to know what to look for when you're trying to find other people who are also trying to sneak through places.
Very reasonable. Now, my question for you, would something like a sleight of hand skill be under finagle or stealth?
Yes, it would be under finagle.
Okay.
You would probably use it in combination with stealth, and you would get a bonus on your finagle roll if you are successfully stealthed.
Okay.
But another thing that stealth also covers camouflage.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
It covers disguises. It covers blending in with the crowd.
I like it.
It's not just the typical rogue in all black sneaking into the stronghold. And then the last one, and we talked about this one a bit whenever we were talking about exploration, is wilds. So wilds is the equivalent of the Dungeons & Dragons survival skill. It's knowledge of how the wilderness works. It's, knowing what plants are safe to eat, what to look out for game or potentially dangerous animals, how to navigate through the wilderness, things of that nature.
Okay.
And then with the combat skills, we already covered a couple of them. Brawl is hand-to-hand combat. Melee weapons is self-explanatory. Ordnance. Ordnance is my answer to big guns.
I like it.
So ordnance is for weapons that are typically oversized or mounted weapons. Anything that is too big and bulky to be effectively carried around and used as a primary weapon.
Okay.
So things like miniguns, grenade launchers, flamethrowers, artillery.
Pretty much anything that's going to be over like 10 pounds, 10, 15 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything like a javelin missile launcher that's a single-use weapon, that's going to be ordnance.
Fair. Where a javelin would be old world.
Javelin is going to be a...
We'll
get to that. Yeah. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so like ordnance is going to be like anti-materiel rifles. If you're wanting to go super sci-fi, like Gauss rifles,
Okay.
anything that is mounted to a vehicle. So like a 40 millimeter grenade autocannon, things like that.
Right.
Those are all going to be ordnance.
If you see Schwarzenegger or Stallone carrying it in an 80s action movie, it's ordnance.
Yes, absolutely. If you see somebody carrying it in power armor in a Fallout cutscene,
It's ordnance.
probably.
Fair.
They do have some rifles. They do
Yeah.
have some like assault rifles and stuff, but like if it's a minigun or a missile launcher or anything like that, that's definitely going to be
Oh,
ordnance.
the opening to Fallout 2. Oh god, it's bringing back good memories.
Yeah. Next up is pistols, fairly self-explanatory. One-handed firearms.
Yeah.
Now, getting to javelins, that falls under primitive arms.
Okay.
And this is something that I had to figure out because, as we have mentioned, this game started as a Fallout Pen and Paper clone or a Fallout Pen and Paper hack. And you don't have bows and arrows in Fallout.
You don't.
You should, but you don't.
Yeah, you really should. I agree.
And so primitive arms is for anything ranged that isn't a firearm.
Okay.
So that's bows and arrows, crossbows, blowguns, thrown weapons. So that would be javelins and throwing axes and throwing knives and atlatls and shuriken
Hucksters.
and bolas, nets, anything that has range but is not a firearm.
Okay.
And then the last combat skill is rifles. Because if you have pistols, you have to have rifles. And rifles is just two-handed guns.
That aren't ginormous.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But like anti-material rifles, they are generally, those are things where you go and you set up a post and you set up on a bipod or you set up on sandbags or you set up, on something to stabilize it because anti-material rifles are like 12 pounds.
Yeah.
You're not going to just be he-manning that around the battlefield and shooting people with it.
Right.
That is definitely you find a spot, you make a nest, and you take your shot, and then you leave.
Now, again, going with the traditional location of this as you've had it set up, because you set this up for you, particularly in West Virginia and Appalachia. Again, those Kentucky long rifles are not light. That said, they're generally somewhere between 10 and 15 pounds-ish, but they're also very, very long. Those would still fall under rifles, but anything much heavier, much larger would fall under that ordnance.
Right. And also with ordnance, the ordnance weapons are designed to be plot point weapons.
Okay.
And they are going to have exceptionally high damage output, but exceptionally difficult to find ammunition.
That stands to perfect reason.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I would love to do as a character playing this is I would want to try to build a literal old-fashioned hand cannon and, be shooting something like a 50 or 60 caliber ball, but it would be a single shot. At the time, they were pistols, but I mean, it would be almost like a blunderbuss, but not quite. But yes.
Well, I was going even further back than that and like the little tube on the end of a stick.
Yeah. Where those are like a pipe rifle?
No, like the old-fashioned arquebus.
Okay,
like
yeah.
The original handgun.
Yes.
Which was basically a miniature cannon lashed to the end of a pole.
Yes.
Because you wanted to keep it out there away from you in case it exploded because there was a pretty good chance that it would.
Yeah, those are fun.
When you're saying hand cannon, that's what I was thinking of.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was trying to make it feasible for people to. Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Age of Empires 2 lately, and so hand cannoneers are a thing in there, and that's what they are using.
What nation are you playing?
My preferred civilization is Byzantines.
Okay.
But every so often, I'll just run like a skirmish and just have it randomly assign me a civilization because there's so many in the version that I got because it was on sale on Steam, the definitive edition.
Yes,
there's like 45 civilizations in there.
Yes.
Where the one that I grew up with was the base version of the game, which had like 12.
Right.
So like I think right now the one that I'm in the middle of, I'm playing as the Bengali.
Okay.
So they have like chariot archers and elephants.
Nice.
Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Rabbit
Um,
trails.
yeah. So those are all of the skills and all of the things that you can do with your skills. I'm going to gloss over these next few parts because I don't have a whole lot filled in to cover for these. Next up are perks and traits and quirks. So perks are things that modify your skills. If you have at least a 5 in a skills governing attribute, you can take a perk at character creation for that skill. And they're going to be things like, for example, I have acrobatics done. You can pick nimble, so your avoidance and sequence are each increased by 1. Sure-footed, whenever you make a quick check, the check's difficulty is reduced by 1 rank.
Okay.
And swift, your speed is increased by 1.
Okay.
So these are general bonuses, and some of them are going to give you things like you get, because you have this skill, whenever you are making a related check in a different skill, you get a secondary die on that check with the other skill because you're using cross knowledge.
Yeah.
So like one example that I had under computer use, I have one called hardware engineer, where whenever you're making a repair check on something with electronic components, if you have the hardware engineer perk under computer use, then you get a die in your secondary pool on that repair check because there's a certain amount of crossover of knowing, I know the innards of this computer. I know how circuits work. I know how the wires are supposed to go. I know how to trace circuits. So I can translate that into, figuring out this electrical problem on this piece of equipment.
Okay.
So things like that. Or like one I've got called Watchmaker, where you get a bonus die on repair checks for firearm repairs if you have this under your finagle skill.
Okay, I like it.
So yeah, it's a way to combine skills, to use one skill to help another, and to further take advantage of your character's full skill set.
No, I like that because, again, a lot of background knowledge gets lost, I think, in a lot of skill checks where, like, okay, am I doing it this way or am I doing it this way, and what die do I want to use? And so with these skills, it's like, hey, you can kind of dip into both.
Yeah. And the way that I'm trying to set up perks is that perks don't necessarily give you bonus dice in the skill that they are under.
Okay.
There are still some examples where they are, and I'm still working on that. But that particular thing falls under traits. So traits are things that you buy with your experience points if you have the governing skill. And the whole thing about a trait is setting conditions under which you get dice in your secondary dice pool. Traits are ways to collect dice for that secondary pool.
Oh, okay.
And the way that traits scale is the size of the die that they provide is determined by how many ranks you have in that skill. So if you're rank 1, it gives you a D4, rank 2 a D6, rank 3 a D8, rank 4 a D10.
Fair.
And you spend experience points based on how many traits you already have. So if you've got one trait, then your second trait is going to cost 2 experience.
Gotcha.
Your third trait's going to cost 3. Your fourth trait's going to cost 4. And that way, you can't just keep collecting a whole bunch of traits and end up with massive dice pools without, taking away from progression in other areas of your character. I mean, if you want to just be the jack of all trades and come up with all of the ways to be at least moderately good at everything, that is something that you can do. But you're going to be devoting a lot of time into buying rank 1 of skills and buying traits if you're going to be doing that. There are more efficient ways to spend your experience points. But that's going to be things like I have marksman there's 2 versions. You have marksman for pistols and marksman for rifles that gives you a secondary die whenever you are shooting at somebody with a single shot.
Okay.
weapon of the proper thing. With chemistry, you can specialize in one of the three categories of things that you can make. And whenever you're making things in that one category, you get an extra die. Say if you specialize in explosives, anytime you make explosives, you get an extra die in your secondary pool for any check that you make when you're crafting explosives. Things like that. And then the last one that we're going to talk about are quirks. And quirks are these are inspired by a lot of the narrative games that I have either played or have listened to actual plays of, things like Fate, things like Cypher. These are character traits that are going to exemplify how your character is going to behave.
Okay.
So there are 3 quirks that you get. First one is your drive. It's what their long-term goal is. It's the reason why they are venturing out rather than staying home in the safety of a settlement.
That's a good thing to flesh out.
Some examples are you want to see things you've never seen before, you want to test your inventions or ideas, or you seek pre-event technology to restore to working order.
Okay.
Next up is your habit. It is a learned behavior. It is neither wholly beneficial nor detrimental. It just depends on the situation. And some examples are you just want people to get along and to like you. You always sample food and drink before giving it to other people. Or you touch your weapon whenever you get nervous.
Okay.
And then you have flaws, which are impulses that you have to struggle to keep in check. And the line that I have in here is, flaws encourage characters to make suboptimal choices for the sake of role-playing.
Oh, this gets overlooked so many times.
Okay, so some examples are, you don't think to check for dangers before entering an area.
Leroy Jenkins.
You prioritize yourself and your safety and comfort over that of others. You're selfish.
I've known a few like that, yeah.
And you can't pass up a game of chance or turn down a bet.
I've met people like that too. Again, the Moon's a Harsh Mistress is like, there's an entire culture that is this. Like the entire lunar culture is they're all gamblers. It's kind of interesting and fun.
Yeah. And so one of the things with these quirks is if a quirk would come up, the lore keeper can invoke a character's quirk.
Okay.
And they don't have to do whatever it is that the lore keeper suggests. But if they do, they get a luck point.
Okay.
And so this is a way to get those characters who maybe they've had 3 attacks against them this session that have all been critical hits, and so they've had to spend all their luck points to cancel out critical hits against them so that they didn't die. And then the lore keeper goes and invokes one of their quirks, like invokes their flaw and says, "Hey, I'll give you a luck point if you do this."
Right. I like this too because this is a way for the lore keeper to kind of gently prod maybe some newer players that tend to overlook the role play aspect of the game.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really well designed, like I said, option for the lore keeper.
Yeah, and this is based largely off of my experience with Cypher, because with Cypher, as you do things, if you do something exceptional, the game master can award you experience points, or the game master can invoke things where they offer you an experience point to do a thing, and you can either choose to do that thing and get the experience point, or spend one of your own experience points to not do the thing.
Okay.
I'm still trying to decide whether or not to make the character spend a luck point to not do whatever the invoked quirk is.
Mm-hmm.
At present, I am not going to make them spend luck to not do the thing that the lore keeper is trying to tell them to do. If during playtest that turns out to be something that needs to change, we'll change it. I can see why they would try and get away from that, because if you have a character that has a bunch of luck that doesn't necessarily need the luck, they're more inclined to not carry out the invoke.
Right.
But that's something to figure out. Now, one of the other things that is in here is that a player can preemptively decide to invoke one of their own quirks. And they can choose to invoke one of their quirks once per game to get a luck point.
Okay.
Basically, they can just say, hey, I don't think to check for dangers before I enter an area. I'm just going to walk into this room.
Yeah. And again, that falls under proper role playing. And again,
Yeah.
I think that should be rewarded. And it comes into that generally, is it above or beyond, or is it just kind of a quiet time and you kind of use it to build up tension or excitement? And that should be rewarded, but it shouldn't be abused either. So no, I'm
Yeah.
with you on that one.
And that's another thing I'm trying to decide is whether I want to make it such that you can only invoke one quirk per game, or you can only invoke each quirk once per game.
Gotcha.
That would give you 3 invokes per game. And the way that I'm going to have to figure this out is through playtesting, figure out how quickly people spend luck.
Yes.
Because if people spend a lot of luck, then having them be able to invoke each of their quirks and potentially net themselves 3 luck points per game might be the better way to go.
Yeah.
But again, that's something that I'm not going to know until I get this on a table and get people playing it. Okay, we have been going at this for a while. That is the end of all of the character creation stuff. There is a section on starting equipment. I just have some stuff written down here. None of this is anything that has any mechanical or even like item entries yet, because I haven't created any equipment yet. So I just have a bunch of words and they don't necessarily mean anything yet. So we're not going to worry about choosing your starting equipment. And that's just sort of where we are. Once you've gotten that far, you're done with character creation and you get to start playing.
Huzzah.
So that's the end of character creation. That's all the skills and perks and traits and quirks. I may end up changing names for things. I may end up consolidating things for simplicity. I don't know yet.
It is still a work in progress.
It is still a work in progress. But I think I'm finally getting close to a stage where I can start playtesting this.
Excellent.
I just need to stat out like the base level gear, like the starter level gear, just like very basic weapons, very basic armor, very basic adventuring equipment, and figuring out how to make all of that work together. But anyway, that is it for tonight. Thank you for listening. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or come join us on our Discord. You can find a link to the Discord through our website, undercommontaste.com. You can also find links there to our Patreon that I am in the process of deprecating, patreon.com/undercommontaste, as well as our itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io.
Again, we're so glad you found us. We hope you enjoyed this episode and our sausage making of Postapocalyptia. If you want to delve in with us with our previous, while we're working up the mechanics of this pre-alpha game, you can just look up Undercommon Taste on your podcatcher choice, or you can join us for our lore deep dives on other tabletop games like D&D or Pathfinder. Or no, we haven't done Pathfinder, but other games, or as we talk about and with other game creators as well. Again, Undercommon Taste on your podcatcher of choice.
I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about next time. We're probably going to do another episode that is not this game before coming back to this game. I think next time we talk about this game, though, we're going to be talking about advancement. So we're going to talk about experience points, how you get them, how you spend them, what you can spend them on, and also the concept of retiring characters. So because of the nature of the world of the game, you know, you are parts of an organization called the Lore Keepers. So there is intended to be like a back roster of other lore keepers that you can draw from. And so you can retire a character to join the lore keepers, or you can pull a character out of retirement to start playing with them again. And that particular part is something that I'm still working with. But, you know, knowing how to get experience points and what to spend experience points on for character advancement, I think that will be the next episode that we talk about for this. So anyway, thank you again, everyone, for listening. Stay safe, and we will see you all again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Ann, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/willx_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.